There we go.
All right. All right, man. We good to go. How you doing?
All right, doing pretty good.
You mind introducing yourself to the audience, please?
Okay, my name is Leon Watkins. Back in the day, my name was Touche. It morphed into Shay, and I was there at the beginning of birth of the Crips.
Okay. There's. I'm sure you're aware. There's a lot of people that's trying to give history and haven't been very accurate, or maybe made their own stories up. You're aware of that,
Yes,
right? Okay. So I got a
absolutely.
question. On a rating of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, how accurate do you think your memory is?
Mine's a 10, for sure.
Okay. What year was you born?
1956.
Okay, okay. Can you tell us about where and when you what year you were born and what were you raised?
I was born in Detroit, Michigan. We moved to Cali in 1966. A lot of crazy stuff going on at that time in the riots, and my mother got us up out of there. Single mother with 3 kids, and it was kind of rough for us.
Which sibling were you?
I was in the middle.
Okay. All right. So you moved to LA or California in '66. When do you land in Inglewood?
So when I came to Cali, I was in elementary school, and I went to. By the time I was ready to go to junior high school, my mother got me enrolled in Monroe Junior High School in Inglewood. So Monroe only went to seventh and eighth grade, so I went there for both of those years.
At what point did you meet Michael Christian?
That was actually when I was in the ninth grade, going to Henry Clay, 1970. It was kind of an ugly meeting.
Okay. All right. We'll get into that shortly, very shortly.
Okay.
Um, so what was the racial makeup of Monroe Junior High when you checked in?
So Inglewood was still majority white, although the number of blacks were increasing. So it was I went to Monroe, my brother went to Morningside, and there was a race riot at Morningside. And 8 people were arrested and charged with starting a riot. All of them were black. And they became known as the Inglewood Eight in courts and on TV and all that stuff, but only black people were arrested.
Hmm. I never heard of that. I knew
Yeah.
about the riots though.
Yes, but only those 8 people were arrested. So at the junior high school where I went at Monroe, we were a little upset about it, and so we started our own little clique called the Joneses. So it's me and Curtis Brown, uh, rest his soul, um, and about 7 or 8 others. So we knew then that it was us against them, no matter who them was at that point. So we started our own little gang in the eighth grade.
Okay, prior to you guys starting your own gang, what other gangs were you aware of in that area or at that school?
So in Inglewood, originally, like I said, it was majority white. There was a white gang, and they were the original chain gang. They used to chase black people around Inglewood and schoolyards and stuff. A black gang eventually took over that name, chain gang, but in Inglewood, that was originally white guys. So this was long before family and all that stuff.
You only the second person to tell me that. I can't find anyone else that has information on that, so I'm glad you were able to confirm that. Um,
And just can I interrupt you just a minute? So I want to thank you for what you're doing pulling all this information together from various sources, because when you get the same information from multiple sources, that kind of validates it, and you're documenting all this stuff.
Absolutely, man. It's a passion of mine. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's business.
Yes.
But it always helps to pass time and keep us out of trouble too. So let me ask you, when you and Mike met, you said it wasn't so nice.
Yeah.
Explain that to me.
So back then, everybody thought they knew karate. Everybody. So people were taking karate all over the place. So Mike thought he knew karate. Mike was going to Morningside High School. He had became a Crip because Lonnie and Black Dog went to Morningside and recruited him. So there was three Crips in Inglewood at that time. So I was sitting on the wall with my cousin Kenny Robinson, and Mike walked up. He stayed a couple blocks from Kenny. So he came up looking to start a fight. So he threw $20 bill on the ground and said, "I dare one of y'all motherfuckers pick it up." So I look at him. So I'm about 5'7", 125 pounds, and Kenny about 120 pounds. And I said, "I'm not picking up your $20, man, but you're not getting ready to kick no ass here." Little did he know I had a little 22 in my back pocket. But that's how I met Mike. He
Hmm.
walked away, and I go, "Kenny, who's that dude, man?" And later on, we talked, and we've been friends for life ever since.
So at that time, what does a 14-year-old have a reason to carry a gun for?
I didn't, so I actually stole it, and that's why I had it. So that was the first gun I had. I was 20. It was a 22. I stole it out of a car. So that's what
Okay.
happened.
Okay. Um, so to your recollection, when did you first hear of the Crips?
So the first time I heard of the Crips is when we were getting ready to uh, meet up with the Crips, either fight them or join up. So I was a smack with at Henry Clay with Pookie and Mike Conception and all those other cats. And Melvin Hardy was heading that up from Washington High. So Raymond Washington and two or three Crips came up to the Rio Theater. I wasn't there that weekend. And little ruckus broke out, and Raymond said, "We'll come up and meet you guys at Washington High's football field. We'll either fight or join up." So on Saturday, we all get together. We go on up to Washington High. It may be 20 of us. We got pipes and sticks and chains. We don't know what the hell we're doing. But I was under the assumption that Raymond's going to come with like 100 guys and going to smash us up. So we went to Washington High football field and waited, and Raymond showed up with two guys. That's it. It was Raymond and two guys and us. So obviously Raymond in his mind was, we gonna join up, we wasn't gonna fight. So really that's where Crips as we know it actually started. So yes, there was an East Side Crip, but until that branch of West Side Crips headed up by Melvin Hardy joined up, that's where it really happened.
Okay, as my partner would say, let's rewind for a bit.
Okay.
So when did this Inglewood Crip thing start?
So and you kind of breaking up a little bit, but I heard
Oh,
you. So Inglewood started before the West Side, but again, it was just a few of them. Like a lot of parents in some of the bad schools in LA, they wanted their kids to go to better schools. So like my mother got me, I stayed on 110th in Normandy, but I went to Monroe Junior High School. My mother got me there. Uh, uh, um, Lonnie Keelan was one of Raymond Washington's aces. He moved to Inglewood, and so did Black Dog. So they met Michael Christian at Morningside High. So Black Dog and Lonnie Keelan were East Side Crips going to Morningside in Inglewood. They got Mike. Mike joined them, and that was the start. Mike was the only one that was Inglewood Crip. Those other guys were still East Side Crips.
Got you. So Lonnie Keelan was still an East Side Crip.
Yeah, he moved to Inglewood, but he was still East Side. He never changed his allegiance.
Right. Did you know Philip McCain?
Absolutely.
Was he ever Inglewood Crip?
No.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Philip, so a lot of people have different ways in. Initially, Philip used to hang with Tookie and those cats. He had some run-ins with a few of them, left, and then he came back. But that's how he came into the Crips with Tookie and his crew. But
Okay.
he lived in Inglewood, but he wasn't an Inglewood Crip.
Right. What matter of fact, so when you guys, you and Mike Christian and your first original buddies come together or start hanging out, can you describe the borders, the boundaries, so everybody's clear of what part of Inglewood you guys were located in?
So we were right on the edge of Kenny State on Third Avenue. If you go to First Avenue, you in LA on the other side. So on the other side of Van Ness, that's LA. So that's where we were. But the term Inglewood Crip really didn't. I wasn't an Inglewood Crip, so but we were in Inglewood, wreaking havoc, and Mike started Inglewood Crips, and there was a lot of younger cats that joined up under Mike down in 102nd and Doty and around there. But we were kind of all over the place, to be perfectly honest, and that became problematic for some because Crips were after uh, we joined the Crips. Then Tookie and his crew, which were the El Capones, they joined the Crips, and the West Side was pretty big. But Raymond kept doing what Raymond was doing. He'd go and recruit and bring different gangs into the Crips, and it wasn't always cool because some of these gangs were people we've been fighting. But Raymond and his infinite wisdom said, I'm going to be the biggest gang in Los Angeles, which in about a year we were. And as he did this recruiting, he'd go to East Side, Compton, West Side, and bring these different gangs in. And before the other gangs realized what was happening, it was too late. We had already captured the boundaries of the whole LA city. If you were in Compton in another gang, we had you covered with Compton Crip. If you were in the projects and you were from another gang, we had the PJs or Kitchen Crip. If you were a gang like the Van Ness Boys or the Brim, we had you covered with the West Side Crips. So those gangs didn't understand that there was strength in numbers and unifying because Raymond had already cornered the market. It was
All right.
amazing what he did, and that type of growth and consolidation that probably can never happen again. So
Right. What I want to sort of continue to concentrate on before we move forward is that little area in 70, 71 where you took the bats and chains and stuff up to Washington High School.
yeah,
So, so testing your memory just for clarification and confirmation, what year do you think or do you know that that Michael Christian formed the Inglewood Crips?
it was 1970. So that was
Okay.
yeah, that year.
Okay.
So
And now when you guys go up to Washington High School to meet Raymond, what year was that?
that was 1970, same year.
Okay.
So
Seven late
so
70s.
Inglewood was first, technically before West Side Crip.
Right.
Yes,
Okay, now you say you attended that meeting at Washington High School.
absolutely.
And it was only Raymond and two guys showed up.
That's it.
Was Tookie there or not?
No, Took wasn't that. So it was
Where was Tookie at, if you know?
so Tookie had his own gang. They weren't with us. They were the El Capones on the west side. We were the Smacks. So the Smacks joined up first, and then later on, Tookie and the El Capones joined the Crips. So it was Smacks and then the El Capones.
Are you familiar with a guy named Donald Archie?
Yeah,
And how about the Magnificent Seven?
no. So I heard the name, but I don't know who were in the Magnificent Seven.
Okay, okay. Did you know Donald Archie back then?
Yes.
And you're certain or not certain that you guys were Crips before those guys that lived in Donald Archie's neighborhood?
Donald Archie and them came over with part of Melvin when we all joined the Crips from the Smack perspective. So I don't think Donald Archie was ever a Smack. But when we joined the Crips, a lot of those cats came along with it. So I don't think he was with Tookie and them. I don't think so.
Okay, so moving forward, when you guys have this meeting at Washington High, how does it unfold afterwards? What happens afterwards?
First of all, it was a big relief. When I saw three guys coming over the fence, I go, whoo, we're not going to get killed. So,
Mhm.
so Raymond was laughing. We all kind of joked about it, sat around and talked about it. And really, the conversation was a very short conversation about we're going to join up, we're going to all be Crips. And the only big question that came from that meeting from us was because we didn't really understand the name, was it Crib or Crips? And that debate still goes on.
You know that's where I was going
But
with
it,
this.
yeah. So people still ask the question because you can look at some of the walls in the streets and you say the Cribs, but it was Cribs as far as we were concerned.
So have you ever wrote this on paper, on a shoe, on a wall, or anything back then?
uh, no, I did when I was going to Dorsey. I wrote some stuff on the wall, Crips, but that wasn't really my thing. But I did around Dorsey High School.
So you go to
That was
Dorsey.
kind of a yeah.
I'm
Dorsey
sorry.
was kind of uh, Dorsey was kind of a phenomenon in itself. Yeah, I can explain it if you want me to. I can't hear you. You hit mute.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I want you to explain
There you go.
how and why you went to Dorsey.
So uh, we had moved to. My mother moved to Long Beach. She was going to college there at Cal State Long Beach. So I went from Henry Clay Junior High School to actually Long Beach Poly for a year. I'd be in city on the weekends and back on the week going to Long Beach Poly. So from there, that one year we moved to uh, in the Dorsey district. So I was going to go to Dorsey. Is my picture in Dorsey's yearbook? Wow, that's unbelievable. You know, we avoided yearbooks for a reason. I didn't think I had any pictures in the yearbook. But Dorsey was a school, one of those schools that was kind of a neutral school where it was going to be gangs from different areas were going to be there. So I didn't know how that was going to turn out. So I go to Dorsey for the 11th grade, and I'll be darned, all of us are there. So I got Kenny, I got Pookie, I got O'Neill, and cats from the east side, and cats from the 60s over there with Raymond. The whole, I mean, we had a lot of Crips that came to Dorsey in the 11th grade. So it took that year of the 11th grade to run all those other suckers out of there. But it was, we had cats come from everywhere, east side, from Washington, Cody, and all of them came down to Dorsey for that year. It was quite a year. But they had other gangs there, Van Ness Boys, Black Peace Stone, some other cats, and took pretty much that whole year to run them up out of there.
Okay, so this is good history right here. And I noticed something. You mentioned twice there was other groups or other gangs, and you never said Bloods.
So
Were they using the term Bloods when you were at Dorsey in 1973?
so yes, but it wasn't the Bloods as you know. So I'll explain. So there was you heard of Black Pea Stones from Chicago.
Absolutely.
So there was one cat that loosely was affiliated with them, and he was in LA. So he started Black Pea Stone up in the jungle. They weren't tough. They were kind of lower level, but he started that. So when the Van Ness boys and the Brims joined together, it was the Van Brims and the Brims. They liked the name that these cats had called uh, Black Pea Stone, and the Black Pea Stone first, then they changed to Bloodstone. So the Brim said, we're going to take that name and we're going to be Blood. So it was the Van Ness boys, the Brims, and the Black Pea Stones, and they all became Bloods. That's how that came about.
And that's how you get Jungle Stone Brims, right?
Yes,
Absolutely. Okay, Leon. Now I want to know because basically what you said, if I could translate it, the Crips came into Dorsey and took over that year, 19,
absolutely, 100%.
through violence and numbers.
Yes, and intimidation and fear. So all of that included. So
Okay, so now I got another surprise for you.
I can't believe
Uh,
I took a picture in the yearbook. I can't believe it.
absolutely, you did. Let me see.
That looked
Okay,
like my fifth grade picture.
okay. So I want to know from 1973 at Dorsey, how do you end up at Washington in 1974?
So I lived there. So that's not me.
That's not you. Okay.
Now
Somebody with your name in that same
it says L
vicinity.
Watkins. That ain't me though.
So what high school did you go to after Dorsey?
so so I went to Dorsey. We were in and out of jail, juvenile hall, and all that stuff. So then they sent me to continuation because my credits were all messed up. Then I went to camp and graduated from there. So my diploma says County of Los Angeles. So I was kind of I traveled. I went to 4 elementary schools, 3 junior high schools, and 4 high schools. So we did a lot.
now, if I could just back up for a minute, when
But
you're at
but I did go to Washington for a few weeks.
okay, if I could just back up for one moment,
Okay.
when you were at Dorsey High School, were you familiar with the Harlem Crips?
Oh, absolutely.
Any big names stand out to you?
So this is when Harlem had just self-started their own crip game, and that was headed by Big James Miller and Michael Johnson. So they were both in YA at that time. So Dennis Johnson was running Harlem Crips. That's my boy, Big James. Rest in peace. So we, it was a lot of cats running around Dorsey Harlem Crip, but when the shit hit the fan, those numbers seemed to dwindle. So we were gonna, it's gonna be a football game with manual arts, and that's all Brim. The whole school is Brim. So after school, all these cats disappear. They get on buses and go home. They're not there to go to the big game, except a handful of Harlem Crips. It was Dennis Johnson and a couple of these little guys from junior high school. They was all packing. And I said, "Look, we going up to here to fight all. If we might have to fight all these cats at the football game, but Dennis and these 3 or 4 young cats, they were all down. We were down ever since. So, and
Okay.
and, and just for the record, a couple of those young guys and that's part of the fallout of all this criminal activity. A couple of those young guys got out of jail within the last couple of years. Each one of them did 40 plus years. So you can imagine going to jail at 20 and getting out at like 62. That's your whole life.
Absolutely. And Big James died in there.
Yeah. So I can I give you a quick story on Big James?
Absolutely.
So Kenny and Big James traveled through the penal system through that whole ordeal, and James had got transferred. He's not too far from where I live, like a couple hours. So we were riding. So I told James, I sent my paperwork in. I'm coming up there to visit you. And James sent a letter and said, hey, hold up. I got some business to take care of here. Hold up. I'll let you know when you can come up. So the letter didn't seem right to me. So I showed it to my wife. I never let her see one of my letters from anybody. So I said, this letter don't sound right. Kind of sound like he saying goodbye and stuff. Because in the letter, he was talking about you and Kenny, your relationships. I wish I had somebody looking out for me like that, yada, yada, yada. And she read it, and she goes, don't sound right. So I'm waiting on James to write me back to say I can come up there. I get a call from Kenny. He's in the joint. And he said, Big James is gone. I was, I was more than devastated. Yeah. James was true. So yeah, yeah,
Man. Um,
that was my
now,
guy.
now going back to when did you first hear of the Godfather Crips?
So that was Pookie. Pookie started that. So as all of these groups were, as the gang grew, more and more people wanted to be identified by their own little subset. So whether you wanted to be the block, underground, neighborhood, which we were neighborhood, but people wanted to be known by that. So Pookie said, I'm starting my own uh, subset. I'm gonna be the Godfather Crip, and that was his thing. But we all collectively, some cats with Pookie, us from the neighborhood, Harlem, some cats from the '60s, and some cats from the East Side. We we'd get together every weekend and 7, 8 cars and just take off and tear up the city. A lot of gang members spent their time in their own neighborhoods. We didn't do that. We rode every weekend. We were wreaking havoc. So doing wrong, that was our only motive. We wanted to break heads and break laws. That's what we did.
So
But
there's absolutely no Black Panther background with the
no,
Inglewood and Godfather Crips.
no. So I will tell you that I've heard those stories where uh, uh, people would devoid of leadership within the community. We tired of being manhandled by Whitey and all of that stuff. We weren't that. We were a gang bent on hell raising, breaking heads, and breaking laws. That was it. We didn't have any other community related motives. We didn't have that.
Let me ask one question about that. So you guys, when you're young, your preteens, you guys are having problems with white boys.
Yes.
So when the white boys leave, when white flight is done and they're gone, do you feel like you guys use that aggression toward other black people?
Yes. So it wasn't just we needed somebody else. So when you mix testosterone with adrenaline and fear, and all that comes together where you're out there fighting and almost die. At the end of it, you say, "Whoo, man, we could have got killed." "Whoo, man, that was great." You can't find that anywhere else except in that type of environment. So you got adrenaline, you got this high from fear. You bring all that stuff together, and it's a force. So the more you had it, the more you wanted it. So It's hard to describe, but it's something you can't package, and that's why a lot of cats, some of the cats that are still around, are so close together. You would hear some of these stories if you went to like picnics. We used to have picnics and get together, and you hear some of the stories and some of the lies. And people would check each other because sometimes people's memory uh, get sucked up, and they believe that to somebody at one of these barbecues or something. Hey, man, that didn't actually happen that way.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, but it was a high that you couldn't replace with anything else. I'll put it like that.
Absolutely, man. That addiction was so real in my era when I was growing up. So I know what you mean.
Yes, it was. It was. Yeah. So
Uh,
when I decided, at 18, I had been blessed. So God had looked out for me for 100 different things. I could have been up there with Kenny and James. I could have went with a couple other cats on some murder. I could have been killed like some other cats were. So somebody was looking out for me, and I know who that was. So
right.
when I
Before
left
we
the
get,
streets, I left the streets.
yeah. So you left the streets when you became an adult?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Um,
I left.
what-
So it was a couple of years in there after the games while I was still in the streets. But I got a job. That job turned into a good job. I got married and I was going to school, raising my family, and working. That good job turned into a career, and I did 25 years and ended up as an executive for a major company in Los Angeles for many years. So,
congratulations on that, man.
and,
A
and
lot
when
of people.
you when you have the what they say, the 2.5 kids and a little dog and the picket fence around the house, you think you have it. And then I got hit with cancer, so
Oh, sorry
I
to hear that.
was sick for in and out of the hospital for 8.5 years with leukemia twice,
Mm.
bone marrow transplant, chemo, radiation, all that stuff, infections, pneumonia for 8.5 years.
I'm sorry
I
to
haven't
hear.
been in the hospital in 6 years, so somebody's
Good.
looking out for me.
Right again. Yeah, congratulations on your
Thank you.
career and changing your life. And sorry to hear that you having a fight with cancer, but sounds like you're doing a good job fighting
Oh,
it.
oh yeah, I'm good.
Um,
I'm trying to put in another 20 on this planet.
yeah, that's right. I'm sort of glad that you stopped after an adult, like you say, a couple
Yeah.
more years in the streets. And the reason why is because it's important because the information that you have, we know is not mixed up with no 10, 12 years later because you wasn't even around for that
No.
no more. So
So
look,
there was a big push in late '73 and '74 to clean the streets up from the Crips. So this conspiracy, and this was legit, with the LAPD, Los Angeles Sheriff, the mayor's office, the school districts, whatever we could get on people, we're going to lock these cats up. So cats are going to prison, going to YA, going to camp for lots of stuff. And the streets were actually really clean. I went to camp, me and Dennis Johnson went to camp for disturbing the peace in the middle of the day, sitting on his porch. And nobody called the police.
mm,
How do you go to camp for that? So I did 6 months for that. So he did too.
okay. So I don't want to get too far off.
Yeah.
Right. I need to go back to two things.
Okay.
The because you never specifically answered the question about when you first heard of the Godfather, Chris. What year do you think that was?
That had to be late '73. I'm
Okay,
guessing. Yeah.
yeah, that's what Pookie told me. So
Yeah.
okay, you consistent and on
Yeah.
point for my information. Okay, so now back to the neighborhood.
Yes.
Did you get around the city a lot, or was you
We were everywhere.
okay? East
So it
side.
wasn't no east side too. We didn't have any specific. You couldn't say the neighborhood was over here in this area. We weren't like that. So I was on. off Exposition, and the avenues. Kenny and Mike was in Inglewood. Popeye and Shotgun, they were kind of close, but we were kind of everywhere. So when you said neighborhood, it wasn't a specific neighborhood, but it was that group. Everybody know who that group was.
Right, and that's
We,
what I'm trying. And that's what I'm trying to get down to. Had you heard of was neighborhood a generic term or different pockets of neighborhoods or
no,
how
so
did that work?
we were the neighborhood Crips. Now, since then, there's probably been 4 or 5 different groups that said we're the neighborhood Crips. We were the original neighborhood Crips. It was us. It was about 10 of us. So it was just a name to identify us and our little group. That was all. We were with everybody else. We were with the block. We were with 94th Street. We were with Harlem. We were all over the place. But that name was group specific as opposed to geographically specific.
Okay, now there was a well known neighborhood called Neighborhood, and they evolved to the Neighborhood Crips and Neighborhood Family on the East Side. Were you aware of them or not?
No,
Okay.
that had to have been afterwards. That had to have been after 74 or something like that, 75 or after. That wasn't in the early days that I know of.
How about Odie Shaw? Did you know Odie Shaw?
No, Odie, I know
Raymond
of Odie
Potts?
from the block.
Not OD, not OD not from the hundreds, from the 60s.
No, no.
Okay.
Was he
Okay.
with
Well,
Potts and his? Was he with Raymond Potts in that group?
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
So you
Uh,
have heard of him.
huh?
I said, so you have heard of Odie that I'm talking about.
No, I don't know who the Odie you're talking about.
Oh, well, you
I know
mentioned
Raymond.
Raymond Potts.
Yeah, that's my buddy.
Okay. So their neighborhood is a spinoff of your original West Side neighborhood.
Yeah. So originally, Raymond, you heard of the Rolling '60s and that was originally Raymond and Raymond Potts and them. That was originally them. So
Okay.
they were the
Okay.
original '60s, Rolling '60s.
Okay.
Later on, some youngsters took that name, but that was originally Raymond Potts and his crew.
Okay. All right. Um, so the neighborhoods in the hundreds was O'Neill part of that original founder?
So, so O'Neill he was down from in Gardena, but he was just West Side Crip. So he would be with the block, he'd be with us, but he was just West Side Crip.
Okay. All right.
And I've known O'Neill since junior high school too.
Okay. All right. Y'all went to school together. All
Yeah.
right. So now, after this, you could just freestyle, tell me whatever you want to tell me. I just want to know how and when did Tookie elevate to this face of the Crips or this big bodybuilder that everybody walked behind when you guys went to different events?
So it all boils down to how you define leadership. So leadership has many different ways you can define it. So Tookie became this big, massive guy. Nobody had arms like Tookie, and nobody could hit like her. So people naturally gravitated around him. I don't know if you're younger than us, but if you ever seen Took walk around the forum and flex up looking like Hercules, people naturally gravitated around him. So I don't think it was ever debated between Melvin and Tookie who ran everything. But people from all over the rest of the Crips and the rest of the world looked at Tookie as the leader of the West Side Crips. So,
Okay. Okay.
but I
So
roll with Melvin any day.
right, I got you. I got you. And that's why I say Tookie became the face of the Crips and he rose to the top.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the perfect name, the face of it. Exactly.
Yeah. And I
Now
don't
Melvin was the guy. Melvin was the guy from a leadership perspective. He was the first one to roll up the sleeves and jump in the fire and say, "Let's go." So everybody likes that guy because I'm going with it. So
Yeah, and I don't use those terms lightly. I use them because this is the way that I am getting the history told to me, and that's how I
yes,
perceive it.
yes,
Um,
that's perfect. That perfect word for it.
right. So now Tookie goes to Compton in like 73, 72, somewhere around there. Let's say 72.
And,
Tookie goes to Compton. Factor Brookings, the Red
and
House, all that stuff. Is
and
that about
what?
right? Tookie, what year
Uh,
do you think Tookie went to Compton?
so I don't. If he went to Compton, you talking about at Big Bob's place?
Yes, Bob Simmons.
Yes. So that was an alternative program that Big Bob set up, and they would send some of the hardcore cats over to Big Bob's instead of sending them to YA and stuff. That was a pretty good deal. So Big Bob was kind of a disciplinarian, but there was some cats over there. They were incorrigible. You're not going to fix those cats.
Mhm.
So when I don't know the exact point when he went over there, but when Tookie went over there was a cat named Donald Ray from the Van Ness Boys. Went over there to Big Bob's too, and because he was there, Tookie called a peace treaty from while he was with Big Bob that didn't go over very well. We were supposed to stop fighting, so it was we had an incident at a party where people said, "Well, it's supposed to be a peace treaty," but halfway through the party, the peace treaty was over. So, but Donald Ray was there at Big Bob's and Dead Eye and some other cats. So,
So when Tookie is running the Red House in Compton and he starts coming back to the West Side holding meetings, I'm told by several people there was a last meeting that Tookie gave. Do you know about that meeting?
so I don't know which last meeting they talk about. We had meetings at Sportsman Park, and we had meetings at St. Andrews Park. So I don't know which one they're talking about was the last one. So
What's the last meeting that you remember from Tookie throwing or running?
that I went to probably 74 sometime.
What did he discuss at that meeting? Why no more meetings after that?
I don't know. The meetings weren't strategic in nature. We just talked. You have to remember that communication. We didn't have no. We manufactured our own communication system. So there's no pages. There's no cell phones. There's none of that stuff. There's no social media. So when something had to go down, you find out about it at a meeting, and then people would leave that meeting and communicate it to other folks, and they'd call from their house phone or something else to say, "Hey, we're going to be at the Watch Stacks on this date, and most of us should be there around this time." That's how we communicated. But a lot of that came from meetings, and people go out and disperse that information. But really, most of the meetings were just shoot and breathe. There was nothing really strategic. So the last meeting I remember with Tookie was talking about organizing and doing some different stuff than what we were doing. But that was never going to go over because we weren't that. We were street gang bent on hell. That was it. That was
The
it. I mean, we weren't going to be collecting money and doing that kind of stuff. We weren't doing
can I hear from your point of view or recollection, your experience when the Godfathers, when you guys were you a Godfather?
no. But I was
Okay,
always there with them. We were everywhere together. So,
okay, okay. Then I'm not going to ask. I want to know about the merger and why the merger didn't last very long. But if
well,
you
I can
weren't
tell you
one,
why it didn't. I
okay,
can tell you why it
tell me.
didn't last.
Okay,
So,
let's hear it.
uh, Dennis Johnson, who was running Harlem, he wanted no part of it. Even though he was there, we all hung out and partied and tore up the city together. He wanted no part of that. He wanted to stay Harlem, period. So only like half of Harlem joined up with the Godfathers and became Harlem Godfathers. The rest of them stayed with Dennis, and it kind of fell apart after that. But Dennis was never going to be Harlem Godfather.
Right, right. It's funny how you said people would just spread out and pass information. Nowadays
Yes,
they got social media, so whatever you want out there, you just go on there and in seconds, at the push of a button, the whole world know what it is you want to tell the world.
yes. It was a kind of amazing how we did things. I'll give you an example. Like Crenshaw Recognition Day. That's when they have a big celebration recognizing the school. So we were going to disrupt that. So we communicated that at a meeting on Saturday, what was going to happen next Friday. And word got out all over the place. So there was a law, uh, um, um, what's it called? I forgot what I'm thinking, but if as long as you're moving, they can't stop you. Just keep moving. So people were getting off buses, out of their cars, and it must have been 500 of us surrounded Crenshaw High, just kept walking. So they canceled the recognition and shut down the school and kept everybody locked up in there. But that only happened was from our communications. Again, from meetings, disseminated out on phones, people talking through the week. Hey, this what time we're going to be there. And really, that's how all of that stuff worked. It was pretty rudimentary, but it worked for us.
All right. Any good stories or any inaccurate information that you've seen in videos or documentaries, interviews that you want to clear up or you disagree with?
So I don't want to be specific, but I will say that part of the reason I've never participated in those type of things is one, it didn't serve any purpose for me because as an adult, I'm doing adult things and I don't want to be involved with that. I was working in corporate America and I didn't want gang stuff getting rolled up into that environment because that was my bread and butter. And thirdly, probably most importantly, a lot of those things were people were blowing up things to exploit or blow them up a little more than actual facts. So some of it even got to the point, movies and magazine articles that were completely untrue. So I understand people want to blow themselves up. This is me. I did all this great stuff, and I look at some of that stuff and go, "That's not true. I'm not going to participate in it." So I decided I like what you're doing because you're gathering information from a lot of different sources, and hopefully that some young people, whether they're in in Crips now, and say, "Oh, excuse me," that they want to get out because they've heard some good things from the information that you're putting together, and some young people that will say, "Hey, this is not for me." So that's my motivation for it because I don't glorify what we did, and nor do I apologize for it. So I've made my peace with God and what we did back in those days. So I know who I am as part of my daily prayer, and I say I'm a better man today, mentally, physically, and spiritually, as a result of my collective life learning and experience. So that part of my life is part of that. So it helped me grow to who I am and where I am. So, but I am not an advocate for gang violence and gang activity.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely. But I love the line about you don't apologize for it either. See, that's where I'm at.
No, I don't. No,
I did what
I
I
can't.
did. It's no taking it back. But you don't
No, let's
have to
move on
make it
from there.
you don't have to make it into a recruiting tool to where you're trying to get people to fall down the same pit holes is that we fell down.
No, I went to a barbecue a couple of years ago, and it was an old friend of mine. I won't mention his name. He brought his grandson. He go, "Hey, this is my grandson, third generation Crip." So if that was my grandson, I'd have punched him inside his head because I wouldn't allow that to happen. But you cannot be excited about your grandson becoming a Crip, and you know what we went through back in those days. So I was really shocked when he said that, but we had a talk afterwards about it when the kid wasn't around.
Yeah, if you don't mind, we let's go another 10 minutes, but
Okay.
take a moment to fix your camera so we can kind of see your
Okay.
face.
So I don't have to hold it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Let me grab something here.
yeah, take your time. For those that are regular viewers of KM Video Live, we have another stream in about an hour, and Mr. Goob is going to be giving Slick his 50 push-ups for the Raider Stiller game. Goob let his heart get in the way, and Slick and Big Devil try to tell him the Raiders was going to whoop the Steelers. And hopefully Goob's wife got rid of all the knives and razors in the house because we don't want him cutting his wrist after today's game. Yeah. But Mr. Leon, man, this is a great interview. Your memory is so good. You're so well spoken. I encourage other people like you to step up and give your spiel before with COVID going on and with bad health and sickness and our age, natural causes. It's important that we get as much of this information as we can before we pass on. So I know
Yeah. I mean,
I've
history is
had like
history. Black
12
bro.
people. I'm sorry, I had like 12 people I was going to interview, and they ended up dying before I got the interview. But go ahead and continue.
Yeah, especially if you're looking for folks back in those days, because I'm 65 years old. So, and some of those cats were older than me and a little younger than me, and some of them had rougher times in life. So they're dropping like flies. And I don't necessarily attend a Crip funeral just because they were a Crip. I do attend those that I was close to and went to war with. So, uh,
Mhm.
one thing that I say when I do speak at those funerals, because sometimes some of these knuckleheads get to be disrespectful, and people should be mindful that you go to a funeral or memorial service just for a couple of reasons. One, you're going to say goodbye to a loved one, a family member, or a friend. Second, you're paying your condolences to the family. It ain't about you. And then
Correct.
third, lastly, you get to uh, get together and fellowship, and people haven't seen each other in a long time. That's what you do. But sometimes these knuckleheads get to acting up and disrespect the funeral. And I know they get tired of me preaching that when I go to one of these funerals, but it's the absolute truth. That's what we do that stuff for the family, not for you. People get up there in the church and start telling lies and stories. Nobody want to hear that stuff. The funeral is about the person who passed on and their family. That's it.
He said they go to funerals and start telling lies.
They be out in the parking lot drinking. They come, hey, we used to do this and we used to do this. That didn't happen. And sometime and I shouldn't carry on. I'm gonna stop right here. But you go to the repast, and people start telling stories. And a lot of times you can get some good stuff there too. And
Hmm.
people start talking, and people at the table have to check and say that didn't happen, man. You were not there. You're just making that shit up. So that's why I said it's good when you can get confirmation and connectivity from different sources saying the same thing as you put the story together. So
No, that's absolutely true. That's something that still goes on to this day. Um, but your message about disrespecting funerals, that's a great
oh
message,
yes,
and it needs to be repeated. I mean,
yeah, and I do.
when we gotta respect something. So when do you respect something? Let a person go on and rest. Let their family have closure. Let them have that day. Whatever,
So
when
so
you're in war or whatever you want to call it, you're on your set trip and you're on your gang bang tip. The job was finished when that guy got killed.
exactly.
There's no
No matter
need.
how he went on, you I've seen people fight at funerals, and that's the last memory that family have of that person that passed away. So that's why I say it all the time. I know people roll their eyes in the back of their head, say, "Oh, this nigga saying the same stuff again." So
Mhm.
I'm gonna keep saying it. So I'll leave you with this. There's I pick and choose when I go to these things. And like I said, not just because I knew people, But if they were friends and we went to battle together and I respected them, I'll go to their service. We do that. There was one I didn't go to and I should have went to, and that was Turkey. I knew it was going to be a circus, and I don't want to be a part of the circus atmosphere. But afterwards, I thought about my words that I talk about at funerals all the time is that fellowship, getting together with all those people you haven't seen and talked to in a long time. So I heard all those stories from the funeral. I should have went anyway, even though it was going to be TV cameras and circus atmosphere. I should have went.
Did you go to Melvin Hardy's funeral?
Yes,
I probably met you there then.
yeah. Melvin.
I was with Mike
Melvin
Crips.
was a
I sat next to Mike and hung out with Mike that day. Me and my partner.
okay. You must have been sitting next to me
I think
then,
so. I think so.
because Mike flew in from Texas,
Yeah.
and me, Mike, and Kenny drove into the funeral together.
Yeah, I think you was on the other side of Mike. I'm gonna have to look through my pictures and see if we took any pictures.
Yeah, Melvin was a real dude. So he's one of the good people. So
Right.
Melvin, like me, and there were others, left that environment and went to do other things. Melvin went to school. He went up north. He was running supermarkets. He was doing this thing. I went into corporate management. I did my own thing. Mike went to Oregon, got into bodybuilding, came back to California, and became a star. So there's lots of good stories, and along with the bad ones. I know guys that started their own plumbing business, carpentry business, and from that set. But all we hear about is all of those ones that didn't make it. But there's lots of success stories out there. So,
Well, the one issue I got, and I mean it's just a personal issue. To each his own. However they want to carry their lives, especially if they're
yeah,
successful, so be it. But a lot of people run from it. So
yeah,
they may have grandkids or they may have a nice career like you had, but they're ashamed of their past. And
yes,
I also tend to believe sort of what you said about guys or women that come to a funeral and lie. I think some of these people been lying for so many years that they can no longer get in front of a camera and get in front of thousands of people and tell their story because they know it's bullshit.
but sometimes they tell it so much they actually believe
Believe it. Yeah,
it.
absolutely. I know a lot of them type of people.
Oh yeah.
Hey, did you know
But
Lavelle Frierson?
yes, yes.
What can you tell me about him and how you knew him?
So I know him because he was right there in the neighborhood. Him and Shotgun and a few others. They were the original cats that were underground, and pretty sad that Neville still hasn't gotten a chance to be free. But he was a good guy, and he was when I say good guy, I mean a down guy. He had your back when we were out there in the street. So he didn't get to stay out long enough. He was still pretty young when he got locked up, and
Mhm.
still locked up. So
Have you corresponded with him since he's been down?
no, I talked to Daryl Shotgun. He keeps in touch with his brother, and I think he writes him from time to time. So maybe I will write him. I like to get the address from Daryl or somebody and write him a letter.
Mm.
There's a handful of people who I wrote in penitentiary, just a few. And that was Kenny, James, um, and Tookie. So at the end, I wrote Tookie a letter. I know he read it because otherwise they would have sent it back. I sent it to him like a couple weeks uh, before the end, and just let him know that the only person you need to make your peace with is God. The rest of it really don't matter at that point. So I
That's
know he read it because the letter didn't come back. So I was happy about that.
right. Hey, when you mentioned Curtis Brown, you were referring to Cody Brown, correct?
Absolutely.
Curtis is his real name.
Yes.
Now, this is what I always wanted to know. So, Cody is by Sportsman Park. which is now
Yes,
Jesse Owens. How
yes.
did you guys hook up? Where did that relationship come from?
We went to junior at Monroe Junior High School in Inglewood.
Okay, and then y'all just
We were best.
became
We were best friends. So
right.
we were best friends to the end. So at the end, when he was suffering a lot with seizures, and when you get sick a lot, just like when you go to prison, everybody disappeared. People you thought were friends, they don't come around. So I would come see him. He couldn't leave from the house because the seizures were pretty bad. But he was my best man at my first wedding and one of my closest friends for life. So
What sets did Cody Brown participate in?
Cody was West Side Crip, but he had his own little subset, and that was the 94th Street block. The original block was Melvin Hardy and down on 113th. But Cody had his own crew on 94th Street off of Western.
So 94 block was a branch off of Melvin's Hardy block.
No, they were their own block. They weren't
So,
branches.
so we're
They
talking about
just
the
had the
rolling
same name.
90s.
No, they just
No.
said 94th Street block. That's it.
Okay. All right.
But
Are
yeah,
you
he was.
familiar with the
Go
Are you
ahead.
familiar with the 107 blocks?
No,
Hawk and Penguin? No.
no.
Okay. All right. Well, anything else you want to share before you go?
No, just that again. What I just want to reiterate that my hope is as you put this stuff together and people see it, uh, it actually influenced some people to walk away from that stuff, and also some to not join that stuff, find something else to do that's more productive because the end game as a gang member for most is not pretty. It's penitentiary or death. So understand where you're going if you get into that stuff.
Well, I would like to ask you to go over this interview when you have time. Maybe check out a couple others if possible, and
Okay.
come back one more time with us. Maybe you missed something. Maybe you have more details to some of the stuff we discussed. Um,
Okay.
like like Kelsey. Did you know Kelsey that moved to Carson?
Yes.
You knew
Yes.
Kelsey. Did y'all go to school together?
This thing is falling apart. Kelsey came up as part of with Cody's 94th Street block.
Okay.
That's where he came up with. Kelsey was with, even though Kelsey was a big guy, Kelsey was younger than us, and he was with Cody's little brother and some of those guys. But Kelsey came up from 94th Street.
Okay. I would love to talk more about him next time you
Okay.
come on. I
Okay.
appreciate you, man, for sharing your testimony and giving some clarifications to some of the stories we heard. And
And thank you for doing what you're doing.
absolutely appreciate you, man. I'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you.
All right, take it easy.
All right.
All right, that's it for tonight's first live. Again, I'll be back at 9:05 to see Mr. Goob do his 50 push-ups that he owes Slick from the Raiders Steeler game. Looking out for those that sat around for an hour and listen to this interview. See, this is what I like. The guy being an elder remind me so much of myself because he was unbiased. He was just trying to give it to you the way he remembered it, whether it hurts feelings or don't hurt feelings. He was just trying to keep it truthful and correct some of the other stories where people were stretching the stories or just remember it differently. That's what this is all about. I always go back to Michael DeRoe that says, step up and fill in the gaps, or if somebody says something wrong, just correct it and move on. That's what make a great history channel and helps give us clarification into all of the history that we're looking for. Shout out to my sister Kim for being in the comments section. Thanks for the super chats. If you're not doing nothing after the game, come back and join us 9 o'clock to see Goob do the push-ups. All right, y'all. Peace.